Hello, movie lovers. You're watching Does It Hold Up? I'm Adam.
And I'm Emily.
And we've challenged ourselves in the year 2024 to watch one new movie every single day. 366 movies this year. Yes, it's a leap year. And I don't mean new movies that release this year, just new movies to us, movies we've never seen before. It sounds easier than it actually is. You always think you have time for a movie, but then all of a sudden, you don't. But every month, we're going to bring you a brand new video at the series here of 366 Day Challenge, where we recap all the movies we watched the previous month to let you know what we thought about them, and maybe you'll want to check one of them out. So, let's start with the first video in this series, January 2024. The first movie we watched this year was back on January 2nd. It was The Iron Claw, the wrestling movie about the Von Erich family and the tragedies that they had to endure. This movie was phenomenal. I'm a little disappointed that it didn't get any Oscar nominations. I really thought it might sneak in and get one or two. And it didn't. And I'm disappointed in that, but I'm not disappointed in the movie.
I enjoyed the movie. This was not a story I knew anything about, but I was so interested by the movie that I went down a whole rabbit hole after the fact to see what happened to these people and what was real and what was fake in the movie, and it was a really good movie. I gave it 4 stars.
I agree. I also gave it 4 stars.
Then we went on to watch Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. 2 brothers have to come together to face Black Manta.
Again.
It wasn't good by any means. I thought the 2 brothers working together was interesting, but not interesting enough to carry this movie.
I think they were very interesting. I think Jason Momoa and Patrick Wilson had a lot of great chemistry, and I would have loved to see them do more together. Have the movie be like a buddy cop movie where they just have to get used to each other and become friends by the end. That's a much better movie, and I 100% would have watched that and probably enjoyed it, but this movie was trash. A Deadly Invitation was another movie that we watched. It's a foreign film about people invited to a yacht to celebrate, but then one of them dies after being told that one of them is going to die. Murder mystery, and it was okay. It was interesting, but the problem is the movie fell apart when it didn't actually give you any information you needed to solve the murder. The whole point of these kind of movies is you want to play along. You want to see if you can solve it before the people in the movie. But when we got to the end, it literally was like, this person died, here's how, here's why, and they showed us a bunch of footage that had never existed yet.
It was a movie that had twists just to have twists, and that's never a good indication of a interesting film.
No, not at all. So I only gave this one 2.5 stars because I thought the performances were all really good.
I only gave it 2 stars. Then we went on to watch Love Again, a story of a woman texting her dead fiance's phone when a new guy gets that phone number, sees these messages, and falls in love. It was an interesting premise that was not done well. It ended up being more creepy than romantic.
It wasn't an interesting premise. If you have to deal with grief and loss and all that stuff, and we hear a lot of cute stories or online about this person texting this other number and blah, 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 and that's kind of what they were going for. It's weird. I don't personally understand it. I've dealt with a lot of loss in my life, and I don't get the whole, I'm going to continue to text this phone number, knowing what we know, that somebody will eventually get this phone number. Why would you continue to do that? And then to fall in love with somebody through random texts of, this is what I ate for breakfast, is dumb as hell. I gave this movie 2 stars.
I gave it 2.5 stars for love.
The next movie we watched was called Look Away. It's about a young girl who used to be a twin, maybe not, but then she talks to that twin in the mirror, and that twin convinces her to let her take over her body so that she can fix problems in her life, but eventually just causes more problems. It's a convoluted mess. It's muddy. The story doesn't really work, but the performances are wonderful.
Yeah, it was more drama than horror. I thought it took too long to actually get going, and when it did, I just didn't care anymore. I gave it 2 stars.
I also gave it 2 stars.
A movie that I was not expecting to enjoy, but we did end up watching, was Work It. It is...
Is that how we work it?
I think that's how some people do it, yes. This is a movie all about a woman who wants to go to a prestigious college, and in order to do so, she lies on her admittance interview saying she is on a dance team that she now has to create. She's not a good dancer, and she doesn't get the best answers, but it's a fun ride, and there's some fun dancing in it.
It's one of those things of you got to put together of the most ragtag team of people that you can come up with, but somehow they're gonna come together and succeed. Now, it all depends on if it's good or not based on these people. Do we like these people? Do we want them to succeed? Have they developed a good relationship? And I think the movie did that.
They do.
I think it really put these people together very well, had them go through the trials and tribulations, but really formed something that felt very real. And because of that, I think this movie worked pretty well. I gave it 3 stars.
I gave it 4 stars. I enjoyed it a lot.
The next movie we watched was If You Were the Last. This is a movie about 2 astronauts who are on a spaceship lost in space, and they don't know if they're ever going to get back to Earth. And after years of just being friends because they're both married, they have a conversation about if they should take the next step and sleep together. And it's bad. The premise of them being in space alone and like developing this friendship relationship is actually really interesting. But the final third of the movie is where everything just falls apart and makes me hate both characters.
It's one aspect of the movie, and it's a tiny aspect, but it ruins everything that came before it and everything that was yet to come. And for that reason, I gave it 3 stars. Decent performances, but that I can't get past that one part.
I also gave it 3 stars. And if you happen to see us glancing down, it's because we're checking out the list of movies that we marked in our Letterboxd, which you can follow us over on Letterboxd by clicking the links in the description on this video to follow along with our 366 movie challenge.
The next movie we watched was The Family Plan. Mark Wahlberg is an ex-assassin who created a whole family that does not know that he's an ex-assassin, and chaos ensues as people start coming after him. It was a lot better than I expected. It is a comedy action, and I think Mark Wahlberg actually does really well in these kind of movies.
Mark Wahlberg's not a great action star. He's not a great comedy star, but he is pretty good at combining those two things. So I think the movie worked more often than it probably should have worked. And for that reason alone, I gave it 3 stars.
I gave it 4 stars. I actually really enjoyed the characters and the moments in between the action sequences.
The next movie that we watched was A Good Person, directed by Zach Braff, starring Florence Pugh. And this is a complete departure from the last movie we watched, which was a comedy. This is a hard drama about a woman who gets in a car accident and accidentally kills her future sister and brother-in-law, and then having to deal with the grief of that while becoming friends with her ex-future father-in-law, and them dealing with their grief together. Wonderful performances in this movie, but it drags on and on and on, and just continues to beat you over the head with absolute depression and sadness, and I don't think it really quite ever worked, but I still gave it 3 stars because of who was in it.
I enjoyed it more than you did. I thought it was a really interesting look into grief and substance abuse and coming back from that and not always being the person that you wanted to be or expected to be. I gave it 4 stars. Next, we watched Do Revenge, the Netflix movie all about a girl who has a sex tape released and she decides she wants to get revenge on everyone. But is the villain of the story?
It's a story about 2 girls who come together to get revenge on the people who bullied them and made their lives miserable. But there's a couple twists and turns just for the sake of having twists and turns, because obviously by the end you're going to realize that the people who were the bullies might not actually be the real bullies, but also they are the real bullies. So it's a little bit messy, and for that reason alone, I gave it 2.5 stars. That extra half a star was because I liked a lot of the references to like 80s and 90s movies.
I didn't quite get those references, so I gave it 1.5 stars.
The next movie we watched is called Love, Rosie. This was a movie about 2 people who just never could quite get together. They were best friends who did love each other, but timing never worked out for them to start like a romantic relationship, and how they deal with that through the years, how they always keep coming back to each other, but it's never really the right time. I've experienced something like that in my own personal life, And so I really connected with this movie because I completely understand it. And I know other people who've done the same. Performances were really good. Really good. And I think the chemistry between the lead actors actually really helped. And I like the progression of the story. I like the twists and turns it took.
I liked it. I thought there was just too many of them. It goes on a little too long and there's a little too many coincidental near misses. And at the end of it, I just stopped caring whether or not they got together. And that was the whole point of the movie. I still gave it 3 stars though. It was still entertaining.
I gave it 3 stars as well.
Then we go on to At the End of 8, a horror movie about 3 people who engage in a challenge to go into some random person's house and have to stay there for 8 hours undetected. Problem is, the house that they go into is armed.
Yeah, it's a bad movie. It's half star.
I gave it a star.
The next movie is called Home Team. It's the true story of Sean Payton while he was suspended from the NFL for allowing bad things to happen in his locker room with his team, the New Orleans Saints. It stars Kevin James, who is completely unbelievable in this role, and the story just is bullshit. Therefore, I only gave it 2 stars.
I gave it 2.5 stars, and that's mainly for the fact that it didn't need to be made. There was no real story to it. The next movie we watched was Old Dads, a group of dads who are a bit older, having to traverse parenting in today's age. I was interested. I liked it. I ended up agreeing with the older dads more than the younger dads, and I'm not sure if I was supposed to.
They were just having problems dealing with what modern parenting is. Apologizing for this, being politically correct in every single possible way, helicopter parenting, all this crap, and they're all 50 plus years old, so they don't really understand it. And to be honest, they make a lot of great points in this movie. It's written and directed by Bill Burr, who also stars in it based off of his stand-up comedy routines. And I think it was really good, again, until the second half of the movie, that home stretch where they just really couldn't figure it out. So I only gave it 2.5 stars.
I gave it 3 stars.
The next movie is Roleplay, starring Kaylee Cuoco from The Big Bang Theory. She plays an assassin who tries to start a life, but the assassination organization that she worked for comes back to ruin her, basically. And it's the same thing as Family Plan with Mark Wahlberg that we watched earlier in the month, but this one just wasn't good. She's not believable as an assassin, and the whole movie just didn't make sense. It was the same exact spy movie you've seen a million times, and I only gave it 1.5 stars.
I only gave it 1.5 stars as well. It didn't work at all. Next movie we watched was No One Lives. This is a horror movie about a couple that gets hijacked on the highway. Turns out it's the couple we should have been worried about. It's interesting-ish.
No, it's interesting.
There's twists to be twists. The acting was all right, but not as good as I expected from the actors involved. I want to like it more than I did.
I mean, none of the actors involved are really top name actors other than Luke Evans, so I'm not sure what you expected from a bunch of unknown people, but it was a cool story, had a lot of interesting visuals. I think it could be remade in the hands of a better director with a little more money, and it'd probably be a great movie, so I went 2.5 stars.
I also gave it 2.5 stars.
Lift, a Netflix original movie starring the incredibly overrated Kevin Hart as a man who leads a team of thieves upon a heist mission for the government. This movie is terrible. Kevin Hart is awful. He's a terrible, horrible... Oh my God, I can't get it. I can't tell you enough how much I dislike Kevin Hart as an actor. He is unbelievable in every single movie that he's ever been. He's lucky that he teamed up with The Rock in a couple movies because that's the only reason people actually enjoy him. He's not good. He's completely unbelievable in this as a suave, smooth-talking ladies' man who can talk his way out of trouble. I couldn't get into it for that. Some of the side characters are cool, but because it's Kevin Hart, I gave it 1 star.
I don't have the same vitriol that you have for Kevin Hart. I do not think he did well in this movie. He was not believable, but I like heist movies, and I liked pretty much everyone else who was involved. I ended up giving it 3 stars. Then we watched Self-Reliance, a movie about a man down on his luck who is invited to play a game where if he survives for 30 days without being assassinated, he gets $1 million. He finds a loophole by saying, oh, you cannot be assassinated if you are with someone.
Mm-hmm.
So he spends the entire month trying to be with someone at all times. It's a comedy, action, drama. I'm not exactly sure what it was supposed to be. And I think that's what hurt it the most.
It's a comedy. It's straight up a comedy. Everything that happens in it is funny. There's no real dramatic elements to it. It's a very interesting story that's not written very well, nor is it directed very well by Jake Johnson from The New Girl. And at the end of the day, it was like, meh, I watched it. Therefore, I only gave it 2.5 stars.
I remember the trailers being more about the rom-com aspect of him and Anna Kendrick, and it didn't have that much of that in there, so it ended up getting only 3 stars for me.
Next was Love in the Villa. 2 people book an Airbnb at the same time in Italy, and they butt heads right away. One of them tries to kill the other one through allergies, but somehow they end up falling in love. 1 star, terrible movie.
1 star, terrible movie. Speaking of, we have Student Body. A group of students get a teacher fired because they just don't like this teacher. And
Well, he's a creep.
He is a creep. And suddenly they're starting to get picked off one by one, and they have to survive the night, basically. It was not acted well. It was just...
Kevin Smith's kid in it, and she's not very good.
Yeah.
So
1 star.
I ended up giving it 1.5 stars because, fun killing kids movies, killing teenagers. It's great. Next was Quiz Lady. Awkwafina and Sandra Oh stars 2 sisters who go on a quiz show to try to earn a bunch of money so they can get their mother out of debt from loan sharks. Awkwafina's like a savant of some kind, and it's really unbelievable. And the sister, played by Sandra Oh, is incredibly annoying to the point that you just don't want her to be in the movie anymore. The performance is really good. It's the character that's not. And it's an interesting movie. I love quiz shows. I wish the movie would have focused more on the actual quiz show elements of the story. But overall, it was rather enjoyable. I gave it 3 stars.
Honestly, it spent too much splitting its time between the sisters and then the quiz show. I thought it didn't give enough time towards either one to really be viable. I still enjoyed it. I gave it 3 stars. The next movie we watched was Mr. Monk's Last Case, a Monk movie. This is a kind of like legacy sequel to the TV show Monk. It's his last case.
That gets him kind of interested again because it involves his daughter that he never knew he had until the end of the TV show. Spoilers for the TV show. It's okay. It's just an overly long episode of the TV show Monk and rather not as interesting. So I only went with 2.5 stars.
I enjoy Monk, but this just didn't feel like a Monk movie. So I gave it 3 stars.
So this is where we're going to deviate a little bit because we also have a podcast called, you guessed it, Does It Hold Up? Where we talk about old movies to see if they still hold up to today's standards. And she hasn't seen a lot of those. So anytime we watch a movie that she hasn't seen for the podcast, but I've already seen, I need to go off script and watch a different movie to keep up with this challenge. So I watched a documentary called The Loneliest Whale: The Search for 52. This is a story all about a guy who wants to go find a whale who speaks in different hertz than any other whale out there. They want to know if this whale is an abnormal type of whale, a different species, whatever. I love it. I love animal stories. Problem is, halfway through this movie, we forget we're searching for a whale and focus on the documentarian, and I don't give a crap about him. He makes it entirely about himself and his legacy about finding this whale, and he sucks. He sucks as a person. He sucks as a filmmaker. I was not interested once his part of the story started, but I still ended up giving it 2.5 stars because it focused on whales. And I love animals.
Fair enough. The next movie we watched together was Dangerous Lies. A woman who is a caretaker for an elderly man, when he passes, gets left his entire estate. Turns out there's people who are willing to kill for what she now has.
Yep. A bunch of thieves hid something there, and now they want it back. It's an okay movie. The premise is much better than the movie ends up being. Performances are just okay. I wish they would have been a little bit better. Again, it's one of those movies where it feels like maybe this was a showcase for what maybe the director and writer and stuff could do on a low budget so that they can try to use this to get bigger movies. And it was just okay.
It was just okay.
I ended up giving it 2 stars.
I gave it 3.
Oof. I think that's 1 star too many. The next movie we watched is The Houses October Built. This is a movie that we love, a movie called Hell House LLC. It's a great horror movie found footage. We always look for something that's similar. This was recommended a bunch of times because it's about a group of people, found footage style, trying to find the scariest haunted house in America. When they find out that there is a really haunted house that they could go to and get real scared, weird stuff starts happening to them as people are stalking them and they think it's all part of the game, when in reality, it's not. Nothing about it is scary. There's like 1 or 2 moments where you're like, oh, that was kind of cool. And the rest of it is just dragged on bullshit. And I only gave it 2 stars.
For being something that is a found footage film, it really felt unrealistic. And I didn't like it. 2 stars.
And the characters sucked.
Now, the movie that I had to watch that he had already seen, The Bourne Identity. I know, crazy that I hadn't seen it yet. I enjoyed it, but I thought it was rather boring in between the action scenes. So therefore, I only gave it 3 stars.
Interesting. It does star Matt Damon in a breakout role for him, really. So, more points for that. Okay. And if you want to hear our podcast, you can find it anywhere podcasts are available. Just search for Does It Hold Up? The next movie is one I did not enjoy at all. It was a half a star, and it's called Queen Pins over on Netflix. It's a movie about 2 women who scam people, kind of, by selling stolen coupons for real money and end up becoming millionaires because of it. This movie is supposed to make us root for the bad guys, and I just don't care at all. Half a star.
Even how they did it wasn't interesting. It's just boring, and you don't root for these people. None of them are good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I gave it 1.5 stars. I thought their performances were decent.
Yeah.
Then we go on to another kind of real-ish story of critical thinking. John Leguizamo portrays a teacher in an inner city school who takes his chess team on to win awards. And that's pretty much the entire movie. This is another one of those where I just don't know why it was made, but it was somewhat interesting.
Because it's interesting. That's exactly it. It was made because it was interesting, and those who love chess really enjoyed it.
Those who do not, did not enjoy it as much. I gave it 2 stars.
Plus, it's John Leguizamo, so I'll always give an extra star just for that. I gave it 3 stars. Then we watched a movie called Parallel. This is the movie about a bunch of people, a group of friends, who find a mirror in an attic of a house that they're renting, which can teleport them to parallel dimensions. And then they all sort of use it for their own greed in ways. And then they butt heads because of it, and then they start dying. I don't know. It's a stupid movie. Great premise. Pretty good performances, but overall just it didn't come together, and I would love to see this movie remade with a bigger budget and a better director.
Agreed 100%. It just squandered what it had. I gave it 2 stars.
Agreed, 2 stars.
Then we watched Night Swim, a horror movie all about a swimming pool that is haunted, alive, sentient, that takes over people.
Blumhouse. They tried real hard with this one, and it just fell really flat. There wasn't anything scary about this movie. There wasn't anything inherently horror-esque about this movie. It was just people swimming for a good portion of the movie, and who cares? I didn't need to see that, and a lot of the story didn't make sense, so I went 2 stars.
I gave it 3 stars. I could see it being a little scarier for someone who already was afraid of water, but, I thought the performances were decent, and they made some pretty smart decisions.
Disney's Wish. A celebration of 100 years at Disney. This is the movie that they gave us. Good animation. I thought the animation was going to piss me off because it was super weird, but I actually really, after the first 5 minutes and getting adjusted to it, I really enjoyed the animation. Vocal performances were pretty good, but overall the movie was just a love letter to old Disney without making sure that they made a good movie in the meantime. And I didn't really care about the story of a young girl trying to steal wishes from the man who won't grant them because she thinks it'll make a better society, even though if you give everybody what they want, everybody's going to get greedy and it's not going to actually coalesce and come together.
I could see that being your reasoning. I enjoyed it more than he did. I thought there was a few too many songs, and not all the songs were good. So
there was 1 good song.
I enjoy 2 of them. 2.5, I should say.
1.
I gave it 2.5 stars.
1 star.
Last movie we watched for the month was Migration, a story about a family of ducks who decide to migrate for the first time in their lives, and chaos ensues as they try to get to Jamaica with their overly protective father.
Yeah, they've never traveled before because the dad's a freaking nut job.
He's scared of everything.
Yeah. And he takes it out on his kids, who doesn't allow them to do anything, and they have to learn to live together and work together to go on this great journey. I thought it was a lot of fun.
It was a lot better than I was expecting. I had very low expectations going in, but I thought everything they did was pretty earned.
Yeah.
And it was a fun kids movie.
It was a very well-paced story that was written pretty good, written well, and voice performances were on spot. They were great.
Yeah.
So overall, I gave it 3 stars.
I gave it 3 stars.
I think it was a good movie to end the month on, especially after watching Disney's Wish 1 star. All right, that's it for us. Let us know in the comments below if you enjoyed this, our little trip through all the movies that we watched back in January. Follow along with our challenge. Let us know what kind of movies you're watching every single month, and if you can watch 366 movies this year, 1 for every day. And we'll be back again in a month to let you know what we watched for all of February. In the meantime, you can check out other videos on our channel. Every week, I do a breakdown of the past weekend's box office. We also do new movie reviews. And if you click the video on the screen right now, you can actually see our video of movies that were coming out in February you should be watching out for. Until next time, be good to yourself, be kind to others, and as always, keep watching movies.
Bye.